I'm Jessica Badalana, staff editor at King Arthur Baking Company.
And I'm David Tamarkin, King Arthur's editorial director.
And this is Things Bakers Know, a new podcast from King Arthur where we explore every corner of the baking world.
Every episode of Things Bakers Know dives deep into a different baked good, its history and lore,
trends, takes, and opinions.
A lot of opinions, and plenty of tips and tricks.
Plus, we'll always leave time to answer your home baking questions.
Along the way, we break bread with the best bakers, historians, and restaurateurs in America, and we always get their expert advice.
So join us at King Arthur as we celebrate the wide world of baking on Things Bakers Know.
Out now wherever you listen. Subscribe now so you won't miss an episode.
Head to kingarthurbaking.com/podcast to learn more. That's kingarthurbaking.com/podcast.
And until then, please, people, remember to follow the recipe.
This episode is brought to you by Plugra European-style butter, crafted for those who demand precision and exceptional results in the kitchen. With 82% butter fat and a slow churn process, Plugra gives you flakier crusts, fluffier cakes, and rich, melt-in-your-mouth pastries. Because great baking starts with great butter. Unlike standard American butters, which have only 80% butter fat, Plugra ensures the ideal moisture and fat balance so your recipes turn out just right every time. That's why professional chefs trust Plugra and home bakers love it. Plugra's slow churn process creates a smooth, creamy butter that gives dough a soft, pliable texture, making rolling, folding, and laminating effortless. Whether you're perfecting a buttery pie crust or layering a delicate croissant, Plugra helps you bake with confidence. Experience the difference for yourself. Find Plugra in stores near you or visit plugra.com. That's Plugra.com.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Hey, welcome to Beer Sessions Radio on Heritage Radio Network. I'm Jimmy Carboni. I'm the host. It's our 16th year, and we are live on site at Wild East Brewing in Gowanus, Brooklyn. So it's a thrill to be here. We're going to go around the room, and everyone's going to introduce themselves, and then we're going to find out why we are here, because it's very exciting, and it's delicious in the glass.
So I'm Jason. I'm from Jones Wood Foundry on the Upper East Side, 76, between First and York.
Brett Taylor, Wild East Brewing Company. I'm the co-founder and head brewer here.
Kevin Kane, beer writer, and I've been trying to promote cask beer through my New York City cask beer initiative. Cask Crew initiative, thank you. Sorry.
And James Ty, I am the Northeast Region's Assessor for Cask Marque USA.
So I saw a great post you guys did, Brett. Wild East Brewing got awarded the Cask Marque. We're talking about what that means and how significant it is, but congratulations.
Thank you.
And we should toast with this cask ale. It's pretty rare. It's great that you invited, Brett, you said there are certain people that are key to knowing about cask in New York City, and a few of them are with us here today. You invited Jason from Jones Wood Foundry, and actually I was with him when he had another place, Shakespeare. We were talking about cask beer way back when with Alex Hall and
I was with Alex Hall,
that was American pioneers.
Maybe 20, no, that was before then, right? That was, I don't know, I can't remember. Long time ago.
So let's what are you doing with cask? Why are you here? Why is Cask Marque important? And he also knows everything. I'm really rambling, but I can only say this is an exciting show today.
Yeah. Well, first of all, congratulations, Brett, on the Cask Marque. So the Cask Marque is essentially an award of excellence, and it is well monitored. And basically, it's something that avid drinkers can use as kind of like a Michelin guide, if you like, of beer. So it's always been it's been around for quite some time. As you mentioned, Alex Hall, he used to be the assessor a long time ago, and he did a great job. I think during COVID, it became kind of like less monitored, but everything has taken a while to get back to normality. And I'm glad to say or feel that we're getting there now with Cask Marque. What I do is I built Jones Wood. We're in our 14th year now, and I built this. I'm a chef, so we call it a food-driven pub, but we built it based around a typical British pub as opposed to a bar, as opposed to whatever. And Cask was critical that I had Cask, because Cask is for me very nostalgic, and it takes me back to people working in the cellars. Me being like my first job and my brother's first job, we used to bottle up at the local pub in the village, and the landlord was always a nightmare because it was like a religion. He was turning his casks and tapping his kegs and all that kind of stuff. So it was just, for me, it was a bit of a nostalgic thing, and here we are today.
That's great. We'll have first, Kevin. Your love of cask. I mean, I know you on years ago. Your Instagram was Casket Beer. You got a blog. You still have a blog.
Yeah. Well, when I got into beer, probably about 2 decades ago, right around that time, I was in Albany in graduate school, and I was living near this bar called Mahar's, and they had 6 hand pumps on. So I kind of got into beer right out of the gates with that sort of as my foundation. So I had a really strong appreciation for it. And then afterwards came back down to the area and was seeking out, cask beer in the city, which was, a little hard to find. But there were a fair amount of places. I spent a lot of time at DBA, and other places like that back in the day. So anyway, fast forward to today, I've been a long fan of cask beer, and it's unfortunate how much it has dwindled because it really does have a time and place. So I've been trying to raise awareness of the people who are making and serving cask beer in the city. So that's why I kind of started this NYC Cask Crew initiative to help promote and support people and get people out there. And I've been enjoying Brett's cask beer here for a long time. So I'm really excited that they're getting this accreditation, and just looking forward to drinking more and seeing more breweries making it.
And Brett, so here at Wild East, the only time I was here before was the Hard Hat Party, and was it September of 2019? Yeah. Josh Bernstein had a book launch party, and you had our friends from Groundlings Pizza outside. Yeah, it's great to be back. Place is beautiful. It feels like a real old tavern. Respect for what you guys have done.
Thank you.
When and how did you decide to feature cask ales here? I mean, we just had a Czech side pour Pilsner. That was brilliant. I see your cans everywhere. But to drink on premise is really what I'm always about. And that the Pilsner on side pour was, after a long day of traveling, you can't beat it. Mm-hmm. And now you've got something else. I know people have been saying that cask ale is about being on premise, and it's why you go out instead of just having a can at home.
Yeah, no, I always say I'm a pub guy. The only of my beers that I think present better in a package are the package condition farmhouse ales. Otherwise, you want to have that Czech style beer on the Lucre. You want to have the cask ale, English ales on a cask. In fact, I anytime I have one of our English ales on a just on a CO2 regular draft, I feel like I'm losing something. It needs to be on a cask, or it needs to be on if it's appropriate on nitro. It's really like every beer style has a proper way to package and serve the beer, and English style ales, I should say, are very important to me. I truly want to be a Yorkshire lad, and whenever I get over there and I drink those beers, it blows my mind, and it informs what I do. So.
Oh, that's great. And James, you have a role. You have many roles in the beer industry. Been friends a long time. You've been on quite a few shows with me, including chasing the Master Cicerone. Many shows we've done about that.
We've done a lot of shows about a lot of different things, Jimmy.
So it turns out that you are on the short list of who knows about cask ale in New York City, and that's why you're on the show.
Yeah, that might have been
so.
Mistake.
What the hell are you doing with cask ale?
So
Mr. Secret.
No, it's not a secret at all. I, as mentioned earlier, I am the Cask Marque Assessor for the region, And I go around to different accounts, that have interest in Cask Marque certification. And once we undergo the process, I will stop in and just, for lack of a better word, just assess the beer and its qualities. And if it kind of stands up to this, just the requirements and just the standards that Cask Marque requires.
Well, that's great. Wow. All right. Jason, I'm going to let you run the show because take us through the talk about cask, why we should be drinking it, and then we'll talk about what this beer is.
Well, I mean, everyone here is really sort of close to my heart because they're really pushing what it is I love about it. And I'm a chef first and foremost, and I could give you an analogy of taking a carrot from the earth and respecting it, and it can be a delicious thing to eat, right? Same thing with beer. I mean, Brett will lovingly put so much effort into a cask, but if it's not treated correctly, where it's going to be poured, then all of his work is going to be wasted. So Cask Marque is giving you that whole sort of, from a consumer perspective, is giving you that belief that to have that Cask Marque, they really know what they're doing. So for me as an operator, it really gives me something for the guys behind the bar to really get behind and really enjoy and learn. Every time we put a new cask on, I always make sure that they meet the brewers, and they come in. And it's all very alien to them because obviously being in America, you want your beer ice cold. We don't serve it ice cold, it's cellar temperature. It's not carbonated, it's natural, there's a natural carbonation there. So we've got some places will sparkle the beer, some places won't. So there's so many things, but at the end of the day, it's the conditioning of the beer that's the most important thing, and that comes down to how you look after the beer. So it's as simple as that. So it really is. It's something to be proud of. I mean, Cask Marque is great because it's giving you that. But you could have and I've seen this. You could have, as an example. So I'm not a Fuller's pub, but we have a Fuller's sign outside. We're the only place outside of the UK to have one. And I've seen bars serving cask ESB Fuller's ESB cask. It's absolutely not possible. It never comes out. But they're hooking up a keg to a beer engine and selling cask ale.
So it's a fake cask.
It's a fake, right? So that's never going to make it in a Cask Marque, right? So the Cask Marque is, I'm not saying you should only drink beer in a place that has a Cask Marque, because that's not true. But the ones that do will never get a Cask Marque that are ripping it, essentially ripping off people. So
Kevin, are you going to do an article about fake cask beers?
you should.
Well, I mean, it's something that is very controversial. And, I don't want to necessarily get into that too much here right now in the U.S. because I think we should try to just promote cask beer in general and try to educate people as much as possible. So I don't know about that, but the sparkler debate is an interesting one that Jason brought up because I know that's a big thing back in England. There's, a north-south divide. Manchester is, that area in the north, very pro-sparkler. Jason, I believe you are anti-sparkler.
Currently, both of my engines are sparkled.
Okay. Is that your choice or the brewer's insistence?
Well, honestly, it was the brewer to begin with, but I'm humbly accepting that he was right. Yeah.
But I created some pins that we bring out on these little tours I do. One has a sparkler on it, and another one has a sparkler, crossed out anti-sparkler. So it generates conversation, which I think is fun for people. And, it's good to hear people debate. And at the end of the day, I think both are great. And as long as people are enjoying cask beer, it doesn't really matter whether or not you're using a sparkler. It's just if you're enjoying the beer. And
so quick question, for those at the table, for some may not know what a sparkler is, can one of us enlighten, some of the listeners out there as to what the sparkler is and its impact on cask?
Right. Sure. So a sparkler is a little it's a
We're here in the brewery.
yeah, it's a little plastic device that screws onto the end of the nozzle that you put into the glass whenever you're pouring the beer. And it's
so like on a Guinness.
Sort of. We'll we'll get to that.
Think of a garden hose misting
Yes.
or flat out, basically.
Thank you, Jason. So literally, there's 3 different colors, and they have like they do different things. I'm white sparkler all the way because I like my my beer to look like it was poured. I want it to look like it was poured from a nitro. There may be fighting words with my neighbor to my right here, but
I'm a scummy head guy.
So yeah, basically what it does is it's how fine the perforation is on the sparkler literally sparkles the beer, and it drives CO2 out of solution and creates foam foam's hot in beer right now, fortunately, because it's a major part of beer. But so the finer the perforation, the more of a cascading effect you get, like when that Guinness is poured.
So this beer you just poured, we're going to talk about what this beer is, but the mouthfeel, I want to talk about that so people can appreciate why you should go out of your way, come to a place like Wild East or Jones Wood Foundry, and lists of places that Kevin knows to drink cask beer. So there's a softness to this beer that's unlike anything else I had. It's completely different from your Czech side pour. Who wants to talk about what this mouthfeel is and why that's important and how it can differ with your different sparklers? I don't know. I don't know the answer. You start, Brett. Why is the mouthfeel like this?
Well, I mean, first of all,
it's very comforting.
It's a brown ale called Digital Dissonance that we brewed, a collaboration that we brewed with our good friends, The Good Word, in outside of Atlanta, and so yeah, it's poured with that white sparkler, and it cascaded out, and it's got a lot of crystal malt in it that where it derives a lot of the color. We were shooting for a northern brown sort of color. It's very light for a brown ale. You might not even call it brown. It looks like amber. But between the crystal malt and that nice the sort of cascading effect, I think you get like it's a very soft mouthfeel. And then the temperature, the cellar temperature, it's super drinkable. You're not loading your stomach up with a bunch of gas that's going to have to find its way out. You can just drink this all night. This is where the concept of a session beer comes from.
Yep, and just coming back to the sparkler piece, that does like lend a little bit of that smoothness, that roundness to the mouthfeel, most definitely. The other thing I'll say about it is, I guess I was inspired. My beer journey specific to cask was, and I don't remember what article I read. This is, and I'm dating myself. This is the mid '90s, and I read this article, and I was just fascinated by cask, and that led to, as everybody does, when they're in their college years, a backpacking trip across Europe. And obviously London was my first stop. And the first thing I needed to do was grab cask. And that article talked about how drinking cask is akin to, like, if you have a few pints, it's akin to like walking through pillows, and I think that was like a really descriptive and very accurate way to describe this experience. And I just remember being on Regent Street and just kind of walking. I felt like I was walking on air, and I was like, this author's right. This is this amazing experience.
Mouthfeel.
All right. So my heart tells me that I'm not a sparkler guy, right? And the reason is, I think it's because I honestly believe that you can really pick out the characteristics of a beer without it being sparkled, because essentially when you pull a beer through a sparkler, it's like putting it in a Vitaprep or a food processor, and it's just like whizzing it all together. And the touch on the tongue is creamy and it's beautiful, but you don't get, for me, the characteristics of the beer. However, it's something that is very subjective to every single person. So there's no right or wrong to it whatsoever. So as I already said, I'm pouring beers that both of my beers have sparklers. Both of my beer engines have sparklers on right now. But depending on the beer that I'm going to buy next, if I was to buy, I don't know if he hears something from this, but if I was going to go Dutchess County, for example, I would take the sparkler off, because I feel that there's so much character in the layers of his beer that I don't want it all mushed up. I want to taste it. as far as we're talking about mouth appeal, texture, blah, blah, blah. But also the visual is far superior with a sparkler because you get that nice head. You also get that whole settling as the beer's coming through the very fine mesh and getting all messed up. and you watch it settling in the glass. It's kind of like the widget in the Guinness can. So it's horses for courses. It really is. And yeah, there is a north and south divide. But at the same time, it's not about north and south. It's really about the styles of breweries, because you would get like a brewery in let's say the Black Country in the Midlands, that everything would be sparkled. You'd go in the same in staying in the West Midlands in the UK in the middle. You could go to sort of Ansell's or M&B, and a lot of their beers would be non-sparkled. And it's just the brewers. It's the cask, for example. The cask for me is not. We're the end. I'm the end. I'm not the end user, but I'm the person that's basically representing the brewery. So it's all about, I can mess up his beer, Brett's beer, and if Brett wants his beer sparkled, then he would have to give me a good reason for it, just to really understand. But I totally would go for that.
That being said, if Jason said, "Hey, I would love to try this beer with no sparkler," I'd be like, "Yeah, let's go." Like,
Yeah.
Because we don't do it. We're kind of a sparkler pub, but I'm not opposed. And if I made if I was doing a beer that was based on a southern regional style, I would definitely take the sparkler off, just because I feel like you're going to get the best approximation of sort of what you recognize in those types
And
of
then
beers.
the sparkler is only on when you pour it.
Only handful.
Right.
Only
Yeah.
hemp. So Kevin, jump in. Sparklers, mouthfeel.
Yeah, so
Where we're going.
I love an array of beer, and I think everything has its time and place. And I happen to love cask beer, and there's always those, cask beer is flat, it's warm, right? We know that's not really true, right? It's not flat. I'm just drinking this cask beer right now, and I'm burping a little bit, right? So there's obviously carbonation in the beer, but I mean, I also love, like we just had Saison Day, right? I love Saison Dupont. It's one of my all-time favorite beers. So like, I love beer like that, but I also love beer like this. So I think people need to understand and appreciate that there's, certain situations where this certainly works. And temperature too, right? Like Brett was just talking earlier that he has his pale mild coming up. And I've had that, I think it was probably last summer. It's a hot summer day. And, a lot of people would think, I don't want cask beer on a hot summer day. And I don't know what temperature you serve that at. It seemed like kind of like normal-ish cask temperature. I don't think it was necessarily significantly cooler, but it was a beautiful, light, crushable beer that I was happy to kick back on a summer day. And I think it's pretty low ABV. I think it's like under 4, right?
Yeah.
So it's it's something on a hot summer day you can just crank them back and really enjoy it. And before I hand it over, I just want to give a shout out that the Craft Beer Channel over in England had an episode recently as part of their Keep Cask Alive initiative where they did talk about the sparklers. So if anyone out there is looking to watch a video on YouTube, you can go check that out and learn a little bit more.
James.
Yeah, I'm actually, because we're talking about this, and I just want to kind of pull back again. Like Kevin just brought up a great point. There's a beer for every kind of situation. I personally, I say the winds of change are coming, within our particular industry, and I'm asking this question, to everybody at this table. Are you seeing a little, because I'm thinking from the perspective again with sideboard, we see Guinness is just ubiquitous and, more stronger than ever. And so there's kind of this coming back to some of these cultural traditions, like these brewing, like these old brewing traditions, and kind of like having like real respect and integrity to it. Are you guys seeing that in terms of people coming in and ordering casks? Is there like a surge in that lately?
We do like usually about 2 pins a week. Yeah, and we pour a ton of nitro stout. We have a 6% nitro stout with no adjuncts. I mean, our adjuncts are like what we considered adjuncts as older brewers. We use oats, but no candy bars. Obviously our best-selling beer pretty much all the time is a Luger poured double decocted Czech style pale lager. I consider us a post IPA brewery. We don't have to make IPA to survive. We couldn't. My neighbors are famous IPA brewers. So, I am happy making these beers, traditional beers, beer flavored beers, lower ABV beers. We're rewarded for it. People seek it out.
Yeah. And Jason, I know you've been kind of at the forefront of the cask scene in New York City. So you've been at it for a bit. And, how's it looking in terms of people coming and ordering cask?
Yeah, I think that it's really interesting, and it's a great question right now, because I would say over the last 8 or 9 months, I've seen. Well, we'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks, because I just took it off happy hour. But during the happy hour period, you could look down the bar at Jones Wood, which is a 25-foot long plus bar, and I serve all of the cask in the dimple 20-ounce mug, and it's sometimes it would all be cask.
What's the price at happy hour?
Happy hour was $9, but it's Brett's just killing me, so I've had to take it down. No, but we're going to figure something out, and there's going to be some kind of rewards thing that I'm going to try to create a quasi kind of cask club, if you like, that people that want, because I don't want to hurt what we've been building over the last 14 years, but at the same time, it's a business, and I can't sort of lose money on it, because you also have to take into account the loss that you have in a pin or a firkin, and there's quite a lot of it. And if you have integrity, then if it's not good, you won't serve it anymore, and that can happen, right? So that has to be built into the cost too. But to answer your question, the most fascinating thing that I'm seeing right now is people bringing their friends to try the cask, and there's this kind of like coffee should be hot, I guess, back in the day, but then now iced coffee is very prevalent, right? So it's interesting to watch people trying to educate, because I'm a massive advocate, beer in general. I want a sessionable 4% is the limit for me. 4.5 is going above it. And the reason for that is not because of anything other than I want people to be able to drink it and not feel getting totally fucked up. I'm sorry to use my French there, but I mean, I really want people to go out. You could basically, what is this, like 3.8, 3.5? I would say.
I believe that one came in at 4.2.
4.2, yeah. So you could have 5-6 pints of this and walk out just, feeling like you've had a beer, but not drunk. Do you know what I mean? And that's what it's all about for me. Conversation.
I'll go back to what James said. It's making me think about how do ways of serving beer catch on. Like personally for myself, I never would have drinking a can until COVID. Yeah. If you go outside of metropolitan areas where there's a lot of choices and drinks, excuse me, in an Irish pub, a good Guinness, which is on that nitro pour with a sparkler, is something that people go out for. To them, that's something different and special. Now you've got places at Wild East and others, you've got the side pour with a nice kind of Czech lager, which again, I would go out for that. So how do you get people to say, I mean, Jason started it, but let's have you guys talk. How do you get the people to say, this is what's special about the cask ale and why you should go out of your way to have that on premise in an area where there's so many choices? When we're not in a small city in, the suburbs where they only have Guinness and that's what everyone goes for.
It's really hard. You need people who are producing quality cask beer to begin with. That's obviously very important. But then, as Jason was saying earlier, you also need publicans who know how to handle those, right? Because that's where everything can really go south. And, I have people messaging me, and have conversations about places where someone left, a cask on too long, right? And it just, becomes oxidized and when those places are and you're not one of those places, Jason.
Thank good for that. Oh my God.
I've never heard anyone complain
If you
about
were
Jason.
Jason, you wouldn't be at this table.
Is this live?
Because Brett would have cut you out.
But no, I mean, you can't have places like that pulling pints and potentially introducing people to cask beer, because they're never going to come back. They're going to that's their impression, and so it's really important, and that's why here, I know in England it's different, but here in particular the Cask Marque accreditation is really important, because that you're going to get something that is served properly. So I think this is a huge step for us. In New York City, I'm really happy. I love Wild East. I'm really happy that they have achieved this.
Wild East has what, the first Cask Marque in New York City in over 5 years?
About 5 years, I think.
About 4 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So
First,
yes,
congratulations.
Congrats to that.
cheers.
Yes.
Brett and team.
Well deserved.
Yep. So, I think that's really helpful. And I think that they've done a really great job of presenting it. And I think people know that they come here for quality beer and a quality experience. So I think just the simple action of having a hand pump, and when they come here, maybe they're coming here for a Saison, or they're coming here for a Luke Rapport of Czech Lager, but then they see, what's that? What's that hand pump thing? What's that thing that person's doing, pouring that beer? And I'm seeing all this foam. And as you were talking about, Jason, that beer looks beautiful. And then hopefully they give it a try, and it's going to be a quality pint of beer. So hopefully that helps, and people post on social media.
Great. So what we're going to get to now is what the Cask Marque means in this country. And James, what role you play, and what are you looking for so that we can, was it quality, service, give us the rundown of what you get to be. Do they have to pay to be inspected?
Right. So before we get to that, I did want to just kind of tag onto that last sentiment and come at from a different angle. I think when you think about what cask means in the UK right now, it's a very traditional, it's perhaps maybe even stodgy, but I have a lot of cheapskates as friends. And so every time that we go to the UK, aside from, the flavor profile and just the qualities that a great cask has, the price point is a little bit lower, and it's a little bit more.
Cask is lower in the UK.
Yeah. And so it's almost like upended here in the United States.
Jason's not agreeing with that one.
Oh, why would a cheapskate go to the UK? I mean, it's like Tokyo. I mean.
Fair point. But I think it's an interesting observation that that cask is not really discounted in present day, and a lot of the people that are making cask, that are serving cask and promoting cask, they see the validity, the quality of it, the validity, and it deserves a place amongst the pantheon of really great beers.
Great. And then the Cask Marque itself.
And the Cask Marque. So what the program is usually looking for, I'll take a step back. The Cask Marque certification is something that I guess an account would have to undergo certification on a yearly basis, on an annual basis. The start fee would be approximately $250 if we're going to actually talk about numbers.
So it shows that there's a commitment. To when I came in, Brett said, I said, do you have cask beer on all the time? And he says, actually, to get the Cask Marque and maintain it, you have to have an ongoing program. It's not just you made one cask of beer a month and you have a cask night.
It's got to be ongoing. You can't just, to your point, it's not just like a one-time, five-time deal like over the course of the year. You have to have a continual cask.
So that's actually good for business, that you would have this feature that people, anytime they look it up, they would know they could come to Wild East Brewing, and it's a Cask Marque establishment. There's always going to be a cask on.
Yep, absolutely.
Wow. I looked at the website. It's hard to find information about it because I know it all comes up in UK about how many Cask Marque establishments are in the UK. 12,000. I mean, I don't know. 500.
A lot.
And in the US, about how many are there?
Not so many.
Not so many.
Yeah, so the U.S. doesn't really
two
come
or
up.
three dozen, maybe.
Some old articles all about beer. Steve Hamburg, 2003. Some of Kevin's posts come up, but it says this description was quality check. Why join Cask Marque and assessment. Maybe you should talk more about the assessment. That might be interesting, and get Brett on to talk about why you wanted to be assessed by the Cask Marque. I think that's just I think standards are always important. I remember when years ago we started the Good Beer Seal that was just for beer bars. We set very low standards, but they were still considerable. Craft beer, 100% as much as possible, and no macros as much as possible, and a significant draft and an education program. Very basics. And that was now almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it was very much like the Good Beer Seal. I wanted credit for what we're doing, and I also wanted somebody to come and take a look and be like, yeah, you're actually doing it right, rather than just like, I think I'm doing it right. So, that.
So it's not arbitrary. It's not like you're the most famous person in America. Pay us $100 and $200. And you'll be in the book automatically.
Right. No, like it's the quality has to be there, and which I've had enough. I've been around the block. I've had good cask, bad cask, and mid cask. But like, so I knew what we're doing is good. At the same time though, I care a lot about what we're doing, and I want other people to recognize it, and I want to be that beacon where people say like, hey, I'm going to Brooklyn. I like these styles of beer. Where do I go? And apparently we're the only cask engine in all of Brooklyn, as far as I'm hearing.
Proper cask
engine.
Yeah, no, and it's I think to Brett's point, it's to be accredited by an objective third-party source that is really coming in with a mission statement, promoting great cask is something that behooves everybody that's trying to promote this.
So do you? I mean, when you decided to sign up for the Cask Marque inspection, I mean, do they provide guidelines for you? I mean, do they say this is what a Cask Marque establishment should be?
I'm not sure, because I didn't actually handle that aspect of it. I just made sure that we were doing things according to the way they should be done, and so I didn't actually worry too much about it. I wanted, on any given day. Here's the thing: on any given day, your cask might have just changed out. The first time James came in was on a Saturday. Saturdays are a wild and crazy day. If our cask had just kicked, and if somebody hadn't pulled the cask out of the cold box ahead of time so that it had come up on temperature, he might have walked in to a 42-degree cask. That's points off right there. Or what if we were slammed and the cask kicked and our bartender decided they couldn't go back and put a cask on? Can't imagine you get any points for that. So, it's not just a automatic thing. You don't just check a box. So, everything's got to be tight.
Yeah, and that's a very intentional thing. I will come in unannounced for reasons like that.
Oh, I recognize that when he came on a Saturday. I was like, yeah, I know he wants to see what we're like when we're, in the quote unquote shit.
But how do you know the guidelines? I mean, there must be standards for what cask ale should be.
There is, and you have to have, you're at a certain temperature, and there's a whole checklist of criteria that you need to meet. But it's for me, I think that Cask Marque has grown over the last once I've been involved in it in the last 13, 14 years, quite significantly, albeit with, post-COVID down, sort of less progression with it. But I really do strongly believe that Cask Marque in general is missing a trick, because if you just said it, there's so many thousands of breweries that are Cask Marque accredited. It's a real thing. Like the Campaign for Real Ale is massive, right? Why are they not promoting it over in the US? Why are the people that are getting off at JFK not knowing where to go? That needs to happen, because as much as we try, and because at the beginning of Jones Wood, I was importing 100% of my cask. So the first problem that I had, and I was working directly with Wells and Youngs, Green King, Fuller's, everyone, and I had them all. I went to the UK and I had them all around a table, all together. There was 5 or 6 breweries, and I begged them to just split the resources and just air freight the beer over, because when it's coming over from the UK, it's sitting on a boat for 4 hours and blah blah blah. And there really wasn't the appetite for it. It's kind of very English, if you like. But right now, you've got something. You've got a Cask Marque in the UK. I mean, sorry, in the US, which is, as I said at the beginning, it's akin to a Michelin star in the kitchen. It really is, because he shows up at any time. Like Brett just said, they could be balls deep in the shit, and they didn't turn the keg, or
You said the S word.
Oh, sorry about that. Sorry, you mean?
Yes.
So and
Sorry.
you might just hit the moment where it was bad timing, and boom, you don't get your Cask Marque, and that's part of the game. Do you know what I mean? Because if you wanna say I'm Cask Marque accredited, then you've got to take it seriously. That means you've got to educate your bartenders, you've got to manage it properly, you've got to check the kegs in the morning so that you're anticipating you might run out in the afternoon or in the evening, and if you've got to put a sign up saying, sorry, keg settling, no kegs for an hour, that's what you got to do. But if he comes in and you haven't done that, then you lose it.
I think a big part of it is consistency. Like anybody can put their best foot forward on a Wednesday night, a slow Wednesday, but like on a banging Saturday, like your cask has to be as good as it is on a Wednesday night when not much is going on.
Kevin?
Yeah, well, I mean, and again, it goes back to what I was saying before. It's that consistency thing, right? So, if that cask is singing perfectly on a Wednesday night and you're not packed and it's not, you're not selling as many pints, and then a bunch of people come in on Saturday and for whatever reason, if it's not doing as well, if too cold, as you said, it's a possibility that might be a problem. But also, alternatively, here in the U.S., that actually may be a good thing, right? So, like that temperature thing is kind of
Saturdays.
It's kind of a funny thing, right? Because at one time I was talking with Sam of Bond Place out in Pennsylvania, who also does cask beer. He makes excellent beer, and I was talking to him one time, and he was talking about not being afraid of maybe serving it a little bit cooler than what the Cask Marque program may allow.
We do, yeah, we do.
Right, so it's like. Not cold, but just a couple degrees cooler than what's normally acceptable under the Cask Marque program, right? And that is to maybe appeal to people who aren't necessarily as accustomed to drinking it as cellar temp. I won't say as warm.
Let me throw this in.
But also, it can warm up a little bit, right? You can't cool it down as you're drinking it, but you can warm it up.
New
But you
York
can have
City,
a
Cold cellar, right?
right.
Exactly what I was. In New York City, we don't have cold cellars like they do in the north of England, right? You can keep going. I was
was
trying to
done.
win. I think Jason added it for me. Thank you. James, do you take it? Do you ever? Never mind.
Except, I mean,
I think that's the thing is we're translating a thing that was, let's say, English with cold cellars to a metropolitan city where there's some breweries, not this one, but where maybe the cold room's 100 feet or more away from the bar.
So, as an assessor, I have to be very pedantic about how I approach these assessments, and so temperature is a big part of it. And so I just as a professional, I have to take points off if it's a little bit lower. But on a broader philosophical level, I mean, there's other things. I mean, Brett and I, we were talking about this the other day in terms of clarity too, because there's sometimes that there is an intention that you don't want to have the beer looking polished, which regardless of subjectivity, if that's the brewer's intent, it's not really fair to kind of knock points off, because that's something that they're doing, and they're essentially like they're manifesting their skill set into that glass, and whether or not it kind of fits into these parameters that are going to pass for Cask Marque certification or not. That's something that's we haven't really kind of crossed that. We haven't crossed that piece, program wise. But I think it's important to talk about, because again, on a broader level and on a personal level, philosophically, I love that there are different cultures that are kind of imparting their own specific takes, and their own little nuances to make it distinctly theirs.
If I can, so to that point, I had an epiphany a couple years ago. I was out in Pennsylvania at the Bull's Head Tavern, which is known for having fantastic cask beer. And it was the first time I was going there. I was very excited. And when I went in, they didn't actually have any ales on. which, I look for a bitter, a mild, a stout. They had Harvey-Stone Schiehallion, probably butchering, not saying that properly, but they had their lager from Scotland, and I was a bit disappointed. But I ordered it anyway because I love Cask, and it was fantastic. I mean, it was delicious, and it reminded me a bit of, like kind of Franconian lager in a way. And so from then on, I started to realize, well, I don't necessarily look for lager from Cask, but it can be very, very good. So I'll kind of use that as a background to ask you, Brett. You have Lucre faucets, so you have, the equipment here to serve proper, excellent lager. Would you ever consider crossing and serving a lager from your hand pump?
Great question.
Very good question. Well, here's the thing. I always have so many ales that I probably never get around to doing it on our hand pump. I'm not opposed. I just, I'll never say never.
Just got to put in a second engine. That's what you got to do.
I have a few extras back there. We have to just get them installed. We just have to get the installation done. Just make the time.
Well, I'm going to just turn this a little bit. I want to. How do you get people turned on to anything? Some reason I'll travel to get a side pour. I'm enjoying this cask, but I wouldn't normally travel to get a hand pump beer. But in my experience, I wanted you guys to think about letting our listeners know really great cask ales you've had. I remember having Ridgway, Coniston. Wished I had a Timothy Taylor on cask. Those three alone from England, served at a East Village pub, but it came over. It was perfect temp and cask conditioned, and that made me want more of it. And I haven't had one like that in the States yet. So you guys tell us about what would make you seek out a cask ale, and maybe one that is one of your favorites that you remember.
From the UK?
Anywhere, you tell me.
You just mentioned it.
Well, I know I was just at Nearax in Boston, and even though there's a lot of brewers there from New England, most of them are drinking the UK casks.
Yeah. I think, I would love to have a Timothy Taylor on cask. I'd love to have a Fuller's ESP on cask. I mean, those for me are the standout. I think ESP is one of the most award-winning cask ale out there. So those would be my picks. But I have to say that the quality of the brewing in the right style, in for my interpretation of the right style of cask ale, is just it's giving the UK a serious run for the money. I mean, it's over here. Yeah, there's
so let's name a few of them, and you'd even mention some festivals.
Well, of course,
going to.
Brett here, Old Wild East, Old Glennon Brewery, which for me is the standard bearer of classic sessionable cask ale. From his Ian Hatton is the brewer, and his father was a weaver, so all the names of the breweries are akin to sort of weaver, bobbin, whatever. But he's just doing with me now for Mild May, which is a campaign for for Red Ale. He's doing, I don't know what I said, but Mild May. He's done a Black Country style Banksy's, based on the old Banksy's recipe, Banksy's Brewery. Mild, 3.8 AVB. So, you're not going to be getting drunk too fast on that one, and you can enjoy a few pints of it. So it's getting there. It really is. I mean, it just needs, it kind of blows my mind to some extent how, marketing and PR got behind kind of organic farm to table, all this type of stuff from a food perspective, but it's always been there way before, hundreds of years before, in beer. But it's not getting enough voice, and that's what needs to happen.
And Kevin, for you, you're following, you're doing tours.
Yeah, trying.
What are some of the breweries in the States that stand out for you that you would seek out?
Well, I mean, if I could just
cask,
I'll try to weave in breweries specifically, but I mean, I'm trying to think about what other people are looking for as opposed to what I look for, because I'm getting old and my tastes are not necessarily in line with the masses. So, dark mild has become a little bit fashionable. Has had a
we're talking about
resurgence.
styles.
Yeah, right. So and so I think that has become a little bit more fashionable. I'm not a huge dark mild fan. I do love pale mild, but dark mild not so much. But that's great. If people like it, I think that's a way to bring them in. So if you have places that have a dark mild that people like, and then you put it on a hand pump, great. You know, if that can bring those people in. But then even going further and being more modern, looking to hazy pale ale, right? New England IPA. It's not a style that I necessarily gravitate to, but obviously it's popular. And it actually can work on a hand pump. It wouldn't be my first choice, but I have enjoyed it. So Marlowe Ales up in Westchester, for example, in Mamaroneck, Zach and Carlo there, they have a hand pump now, and they tend to lean towards traditional styles, but every once in a while they'll put one of their hazy IPAs on, and people enjoy it. I mean, I actually enjoy it myself too. And if that's a way to introduce people to, this format, I think that's great, because if someone comes in and likes hazy beer, hazy IPA, has one of theirs, and the next time they come in and there's a bitter on or there's a dark mild, and they remember they enjoyed that cask beer that last time, and this is something different, maybe I'll give it a try. So I think that can be a way to bring people into this format. James?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to echo, what Jason said, on his picks. Obviously, we're speaking now at one of the better cask ale makers, in New York City, in Wild East. Old Glenham is great. I had the privilege of going to the Ambleside pub up in Mount Kisco. Jason's friends up there. I met Ian, Drew, Jimmy, their GM, and they're undergoing Cask Marque certification right now as we speak. Fantastic place to just kind of grab a few pints and some proper Cornish pasty, fish and chips and the likes. In terms of some of my memorable moments, I mean, Timothy Taylor always stands out. They actually made a bolt maker best bidder, which I had the privilege of having just randomly some pub like right off of Victoria Station, in London. I was in, I will also say 5 Points, they make some excellent beers. Their Railway Porter I had was fantastic, the time that I had it. But also, I had the privilege of going to Marston's, was with Ron Pattinson, our friend Shane McNamara and Mike Siegel, who heads up the brewing at Goose Island. And we had not only the Old Empire, which is an English IPA, but we also had the Man's London Brown, which I was very, very curious and excited for. And I was incredibly impressed with that particular beer.
It's kind of amazing, all the names and places and beers you've tasted. And I referenced these ones, Ridgeway and Coniston and the Dream of Trying Timothy Taylor, because they all were bitters. They were, whether you call them a pale ale or a bitter. Right. So, and those are things that I still remember, only having had one cask of each in my life. Jason, what were you going to say?
Well, no, I was going to say that a very good friend of mine who writes a blog, and it's actually he hosts it on our website. So he's the Cask Whisperer. He was in Boston at the same festival you were at, and I think you had a Hook Norton Brewery, right?
Nice.
And that's actually the village I'm from. So that was kind of exciting. But if you wanna sort of reference any nostalgic kind of throwbacks to beers that have been available in the US, definitely is encyclopedic. His knowledge it's quite incredible. But yeah,
and he's also an incredibly nice guy.
Oh, amazing!
The Cask Whisperer.
Yeah. The Cask Whisperer.
We'll check that out.
Uncle Nige.
All right, Kevin, you had a question.
Yeah, I was just saying, thinking of Marston's, there's actually a connection with Marston's to this brewery and the beer engine and hand pump that's out there. So not to put Brett on the spot, but maybe just the history on that.
Yeah, so it came from a Marston's pub. Our friend Bradley, who owns Seneca Lake Brewing up in Seneca Lake, New York, it came from him and it came from there. And that's like, I'm a little bit hazy as to the rest of the history of it, but I know he brought it over with him.
He probably stole it.
He probably stole it. I actually have 3 others from him over there, and he's like, pick one.
He definitely
send them
stole
all back.
Yeah, the brewery was saying that they were missing some engines. So,
And then you're saying that gives you points for the Cask Marque. It's authentic England.
Yeah.
That's great.
The first ever restaurant I opened was a Marston's Brewery.
No way.
Actually, that's a pretty interesting point, right? So the thing that the US have over the UK is not so much now, but back in the day, all of the pubs in the UK were all owned by breweries. So it wasn't like you got an array of different beers to taste. You had to go to physically different locations to try different beers.
So
and
Samuel Smith had a pub.
Yeah. So if you were in a Marston's pub as at my first restaurant, the only cask that you would have
football teams
would be Marston's.
Did they fight?
There's plenty of fights there, I think.
Samuel
Well, I had the fancy restaurant on the side of it, so didn't see too much fighting.
It's called a Tide House, and it's completely illegal in the United States.
Crazy. Well, that's us. We're going to wrap this up. But I said I was at the Neurax Fest in Boston. It's a 25-year tradition. Big part of what they do is they have a lot of the New England brewers submit a cask, as well as they have their own casks and ship them to the UK, and they come back with cask. There's a cask festival coming up that you mentioned in Finger Lakes.
Wow.
Tell us about it and approximately when it is, because these are the kind of ways people get to know.
Well, there's a thief from Marston's Brewery. No, Bradley, who Brett just mentioned, he runs it's called Beerocracy.
Other thieves came
Seneca
to America. We're celebrating the 250th
He's a tea leaf.
anniversary
He's a tea leaf
of the revolution. So
yeah. So he has it's called Beerocracy, Seneca Lake Brewing. So he runs at Cask Fest. I think it's in July, right? This year, July 24,
right.
is it?
Yeah.
I think around that. Definitely worth checking out. I think Worldies have been up there every year. I've been there.
Every year, yeah.
And I think the last time there was at least 30 vendors, and it is from imperial stouts all the way through to cream ales, everything's there, and most of everything is cask. So it's pretty special. Plus the area.
James, anything else about Cask Marque before I get everyone else's final words?
Cask Marque is it's a high standard bearer for the subject matter we're talking about today. Wild East, Jones Wood Foundry, some of the best places to get casks in the city. Please join me for a pint whenever you're around.
Thank you. And then, Brett, back to the beer. This beer was great. It took me in my mouthfeel from the excellent lager on side pour to this. And anytime I change styles or ways of serving beer, my mouth reacts. And very quickly, I settled into loving this in my mouth. So you guys tell me why I liked it and what is the beer again and anything different about it. How is it made? Are these cask conditioned? Are they made with certain malts? What makes this beer perfect for the cask style?
So it's 100% English UK malts. I use crisp Maris Otter. That's my I have a contract for it. I love it. And then we use various types of like crystal and dark malts to come up with that color and the mouth character and the residual sweetness. It was in the style of a northern English brown ale, so we were trying to keep the color a little lighter. It may be slightly too sweet for our style, but I'm fine with it. It tastes good. It was a lot of fun with my buddy Todd from the Good Word. We got to hang out, make a beer together, and
I think we might go to the bar and have another one.
Let's do that.
And Kevin, what else? Anything to say about this beer? Because I really enjoy. Like I said, it made me shift. It's like when you drink a hazy IPA and then you're on to something else.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed it. I was really looking forward to it. I know Todd a little bit, and he also, he has a brewery that has a Cask Marque accreditation down there in Georgia. There's actually a handful of them in Georgia, which some people may be surprised by. But yeah, I mean, it was delicious. I would like to have another one of it today for sure. And maybe I'll just note that I am going to kind of keep trying to promote cask beer here in the city and doing some more tours. I definitely want to incorporate Fifth Hammer because Chris Kuzma and his team have been doing cask beer for a very, very long time.
Sorry Chris couldn't join us, but I will say he's also one of the first people organizing Cask Fests in the city.
Right. So this will,
with Alex Hall.
I think it will already be in the past when this airs, but this week his Cask-A-Lot event is coming up Thursday through Saturday, which he's been doing every year, which is fantastic. I actually had one of my earliest dates with my wife at 508 Gastropub many years ago, and we went there specifically because he was brewing beer there and had cask beer there. So I have not made it to Fifth Hammer on any of our tours yet, and I definitely want to change that in the future.
Cheers to Chris Kuzma. He was a big part.
Cheers to Chris.
He was number 43 as well. So thank you, Chris. And then James, anything else about why this beer is so good? Or why it's a Cask Marque again?
I mean, aside from just the organoleptic qualities of this beer, I think Cask is also just tailor made, for conversations and hanging out. Like whatever culture you have, there's an expression for it. If it's a hygge, if it's crate, there's just like this community and there's gathering and just like warm feelings all about it. And I think Cask really kind of embodies that.
Great. And Jason, anything about this beer? That's what we're drinking.
It was fantastic. I mean, it was just slipped down there, and you've got complete lots of flavor profile, layers. I always look for layers in something quality, and that's definitely what you got there. So it's lights out.
Well, congrats, Brett and the team, for one, a really nice beer.
Thank you.
And two, for getting the Cask Marque. Congratulations.
Isn't there something happening in May, like here at Wild East?
Oh yes. We're having, I believe it's May 1st. I don't do the scheduling, but it's maybe it will be in the past by the time this has aired. But we're having a little party. We're gonna do a gravity cask along with a special cask on our engine.
And if you really like cask, keep your ears peeled for future
Always.
Mild May. That seems like a really cool happening people can run with next year. Mild May.
Right, for sure. Yeah.
Making a mild style beer.
Yeah.
Serving them. You guys have been great. One more time, go around the room. Everyone say their name and we'll close out.
Jason Hicks, Jones Wood Foundry.
Brett Taylor, Wild East Brewing Company.
Kevin Kane, beer writer.
And James Ty, Cask Marque certification.
Excellent. I'm Jimmy Carboni. I'm the host here on Beer Sessions Radio. Thanks to our engineer, George Mayato, who will be cleaning this up and make it presentable. And we'll catch you next time on Beer Sessions Radio. All right. Thanks so much, guys.
I'm Jessica Badalana, staff editor at King Arthur Baking Company.
And I'm David Tamarkin, King Arthur's editorial director.
And this is Things Bakers Know, a new podcast from King Arthur where we explore every corner of the baking world.
Every episode of Things Bakers Know dives deep into a different baked good, its history and lore,
trends, takes, and opinions.
A lot of opinions, and plenty of tips and tricks.
Plus, we'll always leave time to answer your home baking questions.
Along the way, we break bread with the best bakers, historians, and restaurateurs in America, and we always get their expert advice.
So join us at King Arthur as we celebrate the wide world of baking on Things Bakers Know.
Out now wherever you listen. Subscribe now so you won't miss an episode.
Head to kingarthurbaking.com/podcast to learn more. That's kingarthurbaking.com/podcast.
And until then, please, people, remember to follow the recipe.